Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. This is round number 2 of the season, coming to you tonight from Road America. My name is Ron Mullins. Joining me in the commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hall we have our old buddy and newlywed, Joshua Wilkie. And now, Charles, this season is only one 45-minute race old, and yet despite that, we've already seen some big storylines come out of the woodwork, from the fantastic Pro LMP2 fight for the victory just 1 week ago, to the dominance in the beneficiary GT3 category from Kobe All. We have had a story-packed and entertaining opening to this season that all started just 1 week ago, with 4 classes, 2 types of cars, and plenty of drivers searching for opportunities to impress. There's a whole lot of stuff that we can look at for tonight at the National Park of Speed, Charles.
Absolutely, Ron. It's going to be a great race. I love Road America. It's one of my favorite tracks. Just for whatever reason, I think, we talk about the word of the day, and I used patience last week. I think this week is opportunity. There's opportunity to make passes here once you get your braking right in some of these high speed, heavy braking corners, and then there's some areas on the track that you can make moves and pick up some spots. So, the opportunities are going to come, and you just have to be smart about which ones to take and which ones to let go. And we'll talk a lot more about where some of the places that we don't want to pass as we get on during the race, I'm sure.
Yes, we definitely will, and trust me, around this very threatening track, 14 corners and all, there are plenty of opportunities for these drivers maybe to go for a slightly ill-advised overtake, and this is only the second round of an 8-round calendar. It all started 1 week ago on August the 27th at Daytona International Speedway, continues tonight at Road America, then we head up north to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park on September the 10th. Watkins Glen follows 1 week later, then Road Atlanta for the 5th round of the season on September the 24th. Spa is going to be the 6th round of the season to kick off the month of October. Then we have a 1 week break for this year's running of the Motul Petit Le Mans, followed by the final 2 races of the season at Sonoma and Sebring. So we've got a fantastic calendar of races to look forward to throughout this season. And as I mentioned before, 2 types of cars. We've got the LMP2s with the Pro and Pro Beneficiary categories in those race cars, and then we also have the Beneficiary beneficiary and open GT3 classes. And we've already seen some winners be declared thus far in the Pro LMP2 category. Last time out, it was Skylar Vickroy taking the checkered flag top of the drivers overall in the Pro beneficiary category. Meanwhile, it was Tyler Guillemette winning in the Pro Ben LMP2 class. In the beneficiary GT3s, as I mentioned in my open, it was Kobe Ole with an absolutely dominant performance 1 week ago at the high banks of Daytona International Speedway. He won in quite simple fashion in that class. And then in the open GT3 field is actually Tyler Beamon winning that race in that fourth and final category that we have for this series. And the same format continues for this race this evening. We've got a 20-minute long qualifying session that we're in the midst of right now. We've got the LMP2 cars starting their flying laps in just a couple of moments time, and the 45-minute long race, the one race that we have this evening, and really excited to get things up and rolling for what we think is going to be a really fun night of racing action.
Yeah, absolutely. As you see on board there with Hunter Reeve, we were looking at Wallace a little bit earlier, and with the open qualifying, it's going to be, can you get a little bit of a toe on these long straightaways to help your lap time? It may shuffle the order a little bit than what we're maybe not used to. Obviously, it's very early in the season, so the shuffling might continue on much later. But it gives the opportunity for some of the cars behind to maybe pick up a half second here or there, just by being able to use the toe off the car in front.
Yeah, the toe is going to be a huge factor in this qualifying session. While these drivers start to get their first lap times on the board, we've talked a lot already throughout this broadcast about the format. For those of you new tuning into this series, that is a format. We have already touched on it, but I think it's about high time that we touch on Operation Motorsports themselves. Operation Motorsports is a veteran-led and operated 501c3 nonprofit foundation based out of Raleigh, North Carolina and Bryan, Ontario, Canada, serving American and Canadian service members and veterans. Operation Motorsports is based on 3 core values: team, identity, and purpose. They also support recovery of medically retiring and or retired service members affected by military service through motorsports opportunities. Operation Motorsports motto is one at a time, so if you ever see hashtag one at a time on social media, now you know what the story is behind that hashtag. It supports a wonderful cause supporting veterans. Veteran recovery opportunities utilizing motorsports opportunities, veteran recovery opportunities that instill a sense of team identity and purpose, veteran recovery opportunities through the lens of diversion therapy, motorsports immersion, and academy programs, veteran recovery through motorsports one at a time. You can visit operationmotorsports.org to learn more. Operation Motorsports, really happy to have them on board here at Apex Racing TV. And just from a personal point, I always really enjoy being parts of programs like this. I've done some charity events myself. This, of course, is, well, partially a charity event, shall we say. It's a charity season, so to speak, organized by a charity that is Operation Motorsports, but I've done some broadcasts before with Make-A-Wish, for instance, and some others supporting some very wonderful causes, and it's always very nice to be here to bring you all the racing action. I got my perspective as a racing commentator. I'm here for the incredible racing action that we have here at Road America tonight, and it is going to be coming in spades, and the action is already beginning in this qualifying session. Charles, some drivers already sang some times on the board. What have you noticed thus far in this qualifying session?
Yes, they were very tight there for a minute on the lap previous, but Connor Parise has now kind of jumped out and kind of separated himself from the rest of the group, but still pretty tight. Guillemette is I think working on his next lap, so we'll see if he can bring his lap time just a little bit closer to the rest of this group. But so far, it looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. The times are a little spread out, but that's kind of what you expect on a fast track like this. But once again, once they get in that pack and they start racing for real, then all that draft is going to come in handy. It's going to keep those cars that much tighter.
We're riding on board with one of the top running drivers thus far. This is Tyler Gilmed, who, as I mentioned a few moments ago, won the opening race of the season at Daytona just 1 week ago. He's currently second in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 category, right behind his rival slash arch nemesis, whatever you want to call it. That is Meismer, currently on the provisional pole in the Pro Beneficiary category. Those two were trading blows 1 week ago at Daytona. They were battling tooth and nail from start to finish. They got spread out a little bit after the one round of pit stops, which these drivers will have to contend with here at Road America tonight, but those two were incredibly close, and in this qualifying section, that closeness is still continuing on. That's about 2.5 tenths separating those two drivers at the front of Pro Beneficiary. Meanwhile, it is the three horsemen in the Pro LMP2 category still actually spread out a little bit more than the Pro Beneficiary field, but here's Tyler Gilmed. We're riding on board with him in the cockpit view, heading his way down that start-finish straightaway to finish off another lap. Is it an improvement from him? It is not. It is an improvement from Meismer. He's improved to a 151.381, and these drivers don't have too much time left to go. I mentioned it is a split qualifying session for these drivers, so 20 minutes in total. The first 10 minutes dedicated towards the LMP2 field, and then the rest dedicated for the quite sizable GT3s. But so far in this qualifying session, clearly the drafting being a huge factor in this race thus far, qualifying thus far.
Yeah, it's been pretty straightforward so far. But as you said, we're on the last lap or two, so these guys will get this lap, maybe squeeze out one more at the end, and then it's race what you got at that point, and then we'll see those GT3s out on the track. And there's a big group. We've had an increase in our our competition, so we're going to have an even bigger group than we had last week out there for the GT3 field.
It should be noted that at the moment, I believe the only 5 LMP2 cars in this race are at their on tracks, and none of the LMP2s opting not to qualify, which, considering around this track, I feel like even if you decide to skip out on qualifying, you still won't be entirely out of the race. Ooh, that was a big wiggle from Martin Wallace. We were following him coming out of Canada Corner. That was a big wiggle off into the dirt. The ZFG Racing number 666 car running his way around the final corner, about to end his qualifying lap. Will probably be his final qualifying lap from this session. Currently second in the Pro LMP2 class at a 151.596. Comes across the line now. Is it an improvement from the American?
No.
It is not.
Just off.
Alrighty.
Yeah, just off by 700ths, and obviously probably lost at least a tenth going through the gravel there coming out of Canada Corner. So that was probably the thing that kept him from improving. Yeah,
that was a little bit of an anticlimax for me.
Yeah, as you mentioned, last week's race winner, Skylar Vickroy, is not here tonight. So, maybe some real life stuff got in the way, so unable to attend. So, for the points battle, that's going to shake things up a little bit. Give the guys a chance to make up some of those points that they didn't get in race one.
Oh, it absolutely will. And now you can see the GT3 cars spinning out on pit lane a little bit farther in the back. I saw a big puff of smoke at the end of the pit lane, but the GT3 cars are now joining the racetrack. And I think as these drivers start their out laps and get their tires up to temperature, we should probably talk about one of the other big partners involved in Operation Motorsports. It's a company that you've probably heard of before in both a racing context and a real life context, that being CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is a proud partner with Operation Motorsports to advance their mission of empowering military veterans through motorsports. Their support extends far beyond traditional funding, addressing critical business needs and enabling Operation Motorsports to focus on key engagements, outreach, and expanding veteran opportunities. This foundational support ensures that Operation Motorsports can effectively deliver its programs and create meaningful experiences for veterans in the racing world. Additionally, this partnership facilitates the integration of veterans into prominent roles within IMSA and SRO, including becoming a crew member, having crew member positions, and also being part of some teams' marketing teams as well. CrowdStrike also engages in employee resource group and volunteers in supporting Operation Motorsports at various SRO races and contributing to building and distributing veteran and family care packages as well. This collaborative effort enriches the motorsports community while providing valuable career and support opportunities for veterans. We would like to thank CrowdStrike for being a generous partner of Operation Motorsports. Without them and some of the other sponsors and contributing companies here with Operation eMotorsports, this series and these broadcasts would simply not be possible. And you know, thinking about CrowdStrike in the world of racing, I forget the name of their CEO, but I believe he has run some IMSA races in the past, running an LMP2 car, and I think this past year he had Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin as his teammates this year. So CrowdStrike, really big supporter of the racing world, and for them to be as generous of a partner with Operation Motorsports as they are, really heartwarming to see.
I mean, George Kurtz, I just went and looked him up. If you're going to get some teammates, I mean, you know, some IndyCar legends, probably some good guys to go with, you know. That's that'd be a nice group to ride with. So yeah, that is really cool, and you know, you see a lot of that, you know, from the prototypes in IMSA and SRO. These guys that are you know, gentleman drivers, as they like to call them. That get out and just say, I'm coming out here to compete for the love of competition, because I love racing so much. And some of those guys are actually, obviously, if you're running LMP2, you've got to have a little bit of skill involved, you know. So yeah, that's a really cool thing.
And one thing I really love about sports car racing is the very interesting names that you can see on the grid from time to time. A little bit of background for anyone tuning into this stream tonight. I've always been involved in the SCCA, the Sports Car Club of America, and as a big member of the Philadelphia region, pretty much every single event, well, most of the autocross events that I did over my 10 years as a driver, I did with the Philly region. And one of sports cars' finest, that being the late great Al Hobart, was actually a big member of the Philadelphia region of the SCCA. And I actually learned this a couple of days ago. Brian Johnson from AC/DC actually did some sports car racing back in the day. I think he ran in the 24 Hours of Daytona back in 2012, I believe. And he wasn't running in a GT3 car or anything like that. I believe he was running in a prototype. Those sort of storylines coming out of the history of sports car racing, I just find to be super cool. And speaking of super cool, it is awesome seeing these cars thunder around this racetrack. They call it the National Park of Speed for a very good reason. Of course, going to hold the real-life SCCA runoffs. While we're just off the back of talking about the SCCA, runoffs going to be running here in a couple of weeks' time, but now it's the Operation eMotorsports Racing League here on iRacing, and these drivers setting some GT3 times already. You can see Kobe all at the front of the open GT3 category, and that's a pretty big margin that he has right now. That is, I wouldn't say it's over a second, because my public school math doing me wonders there, nearly thinking that was a second, but still a pretty significant margin over Schuring in P2.
Yeah, it is. And this, you know, the opening laps are, you know, a little bit as people kind of warm their tires up a little differently. So it's a little, you know, it's probably going to tighten up before the end of qualifying, as we see Carney in the beneficiary class actually set a really good lap, 2:05 dead, so he's only like 3.5 tenths off of pole. So the lap times will come down as this progresses, and they'll tighten up a bit, and it looks like it's going to be a really good race. And you mentioned in your advertisement there of CrowdStrike, you mentioned SRO, and the SRO group will be in the GT America, or GT Challenge America will be at Barber this weekend. I will be out there on Saturday with the camera in hand, and hopefully I'm going to try and see if I can meet up some of the guys who are in the Operation Motorsport Discord that might be there, and we'll see if we can get some photos and maybe get them posted somewhere. So anyway, it's going to be a fun weekend. This is their, I think, their inaugural event, first time the SRO has came to Barber. So GT3, GT4 racing, multi-class. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Can't wait to see it.
And Barber is a fantastic track as well. Unfortunately, I don't believe, well, I say I don't believe, I already went through the schedule earlier on. We won't be visiting Barber throughout this season, but that is a wonderful track. Yeah, Charles, I know you're very disappointed that your hometown track could not make an appearance throughout this season, but hey, maybe next season, if it's broadcasted here on Apex Racing TV, fingers crossed that it can appear with this series, because I think, considering the action that we saw at Daytona just 1 week ago, I'm sure these drivers would put on a fantastic show down there in the proud state of Alabama. But right now, we've got these drivers pushing these GT3 cars to the limit, a wide variety of race cars right now. In the top 5 in the open GT3 field, it is a completely different car in each top 5 position. You've got Kobe All in a Mercedes, Schuring in P2 in a BMW, Kelly in 3rd in a Ferrari. Then you've got Coloni, I probably killed that pronunciation, my apologies. He is in 4th in a Corvette. Then you've got Little in 5th in a Ford Mustang. And even in the beneficiary GT3 class, you've got Carney and McDade running P1 and P2 in Porsches. Then you've got Master in 3rd, Hicks running in 4th. And there's some very trippy things going on in my headset right now. I believe the broadcast here on Apex Racing TV has finally gone up and rolling. I didn't mute the audio, so I'm hearing myself about 20 seconds delayed. So this is very trippy right now going on. So as I get that sorted out, Charles, how about we ride on a little bit with some of these drivers as they tackle this wonderful track up in Wisconsin?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get on board here with Tanner Masters as we're coming through turn 7. Coming off this little hill into turn 8. This is the more technical section of this track from about turn 6, and as you can see, just a little too much mustard coming through there, and it loops it around in 8, so he's gonna have to just wait to get a little track clearance before he can rejoin and get back out on the road. And we'll say, oh, he decided, you know what, I'm going to tow and reset. So we'll jump on with John Hicks as he's coming through the kink. That's going to be a trouble spot probably during the course of this race. So you know, we don't like to pass in the kink, but that's going to happen because we have multi-class, and it's just, you know, the law of probability says that I'm going to have to try and pass somebody through there. Very, very difficult. That is basically a lane and a half corner. It's because it's flat out, and you have to be really precise as they come through the bend there and into the final corner. And we head back up the start-finish straight and to the start-finish line to finish this time off for Hicks. And we'll see if he's got any improvement. 207.5 the last lap. And as he crosses the line, we've got he set the exact same time, or did I just miss it? Maybe he had an off track there. So that lap will not count. Yep. So anyway, so that's all right. We'll continue on. So this is, like I said, it's kind of a tale of two tracks. Once you get on the start-finish straight, you've got basically these 3 90-degree corners that we call turn 1, turn 3, turn 5, because there's a little bend in there that the motorcycles have to take, and it's a U.S. track thing. Turn 5 is the fastest part and the heaviest braking zone. You have to really get on the binders there. Coming up the hill into turn 6, very tricky because you need to brake right as you crest the hill. The car wants to get loose and just wiggle, so it's kind of difficult to control there. Hicks does a good job there as he works his way through 7. And as we said, down here going into turn 8. And this is what, again, now we're setting up for one of my favorite corners. This is the carousel. So just a very winding, it's one of those you just got to maintain a speed. You kind of work the throttle as opposed to the brake, get on the guns there, and then head back down, as we said, back into the kink. And that gets you the run down into Canada Corner. See another really hard braking zone here, but a good passing opportunity into Canada Corner. Is a pretty open corner. You just have to be careful that you don't overextend your apex there and get off into the gravel as we come up through the bend. Nicely done there. A little bit of lift and come in again to the last corner, turn 14. and then back out onto the front straight to finish that lap off. So a couple of things we'll have to watch out for. Obviously, as we talked about, the kink is very, very difficult to pass there. You really have to have a really good line. Pit entry, pit exit they're straightforward as far as the lines taking in. Obviously, getting on the brakes for pit entry, you have to know where the cones are. Pit exit, getting up to speed during that pit cycle during the middle of the race, you have to be very careful because you're basically entering back out onto the start-finish straight at maximum speed for the cars that are still running. So that's going to be a little treacherous, as we see here with Ayat coming into the pits. And that cone is right there. You just get it the last second, and he gets it slowed down plenty of time. Tyler Manning here working his way through turn 5. Looks like he's off the pace. Oil still sitting on the open or the pro category or the open category pole, 204.4. So he has increased his gap just a little bit. Schuring in second, 205.4, and then Kelly in third, 205.4 as well, just about half a tenth slower. Carney in the beneficiary class was still with that 205 dead, just 1.2 seconds ahead of McDade, and then another 0.3 is Masters in third.
And I think this qualifying session has now been drawn to a natural conclusion. The checkered flag was out for a little while, so these drivers were just getting a little bit of added seat time before getting the racing festivities from this evening underway. And I think we'll take a look at the starting grid and go through it right away. And it's Connor Parise leading them to green in that number 11 LMP2 car. He's going to be starting this race from the pole. Then you have the pro beneficiary driver of Gregory Meismer joining him on that overall front row. Martin Wallace going to be the second highest qualifying pro LMP2 driver. He's going to be starting third in the 666 ZFG racing car. And that's going to be Tyler Gilmet, the pro beneficiary driver who won the opening race of the season at Daytona. He will be starting this race in fourth. And we have Hunter Reeve rounding out the LMP2 field. And Kobiol going to be the highest starting of the LMGT3 field. He's going to be starting P6 overall. Ian Carney is going to be right behind the beneficiary GT3 driver. He's going to be starting this race 7th overall. Then we have Ty Schuring in that BMW starting this race in 8th. Gene Kelly in 9th, and then Ryan Silone. My apologies for that very likely butcher pronunciation. He will round out your top 10.
All right, and starting in P11th, we've got Jacob Little, Peter McDade in 12th. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Peter is up. He's second in the beneficiary class. Tanner Masters starting P13. Matt Ayat starting in 14th. Tyler Manning in 15th. Josh Sheps in 16th. So we scroll on to the next page. We've got Brandon Mateo in 17th. John Hicks in 18th. Russell Elizondo in 19th. Jonathan Winker in 20th. Rick Hazlitt in 21st, Richard Davenport in 22nd, Dan Fendick in 23rd, Anthony Calvi in 24th, Jason McSparron in 25th, Dave Bell in 26th, Mike Sachs in 27th, Jake Porter in 28th, Josh O'Connor in 29th, Charles St. Pierre in 30th, Tyler Reed 31st, Elliott Whitfield 32nd, and then rounding out the grid, Rui Pereira in 33rd, and Dan Salmon did not take this grid. I don't think he set a lap either, so he just got in late.
Well, there we go. 33 cars ready to tackle this 4-mile-long, 14-turn road course. They call it the National Park of Speed for a very good reason. These loud race car engines going to be echoing through the woods of northern Wisconsin, trying to test my geography skills there just a teeny tiny bit. We've got a whole lot of time before we grab the green. A full pace lap around Road America gives us plenty of opportunity to talk about another one of the fantastic partners with Operation Motorsports, because on top of the valued support of CrowdStrike, Advanced Sim Racing, ASR, is committed to supporting Operation Motorsports through generous contributions to their fundraising efforts and programs. In 2023, ASR donated a high-quality sim rig to Operation Motorsports Giving Tuesday online auction, helping to raise funds for their impactful benefits. And that's, of course, the reason why they wanted to try and help out. Building on this commitment, ASR is pleased to contribute 2 additional sim rigs for the upcoming 2024 Giving Tuesday auction, further supporting Operation Motorsports' mission to provide veterans with exciting opportunities in the world of motorsports. Furthermore, Advanced Sim Racing has donated gift cards as prizes to the eMotorsport League, enhancing the competitive experience and rewarding the participants who do well in this series. And considering the amount of fantastic drives we had just 1 week ago, there are plenty of those to come by. Contributions which reflect ASR's dedication to fostering engagement and growth within the eMotorsports community. Their contributions, I should say, to Operation Motorsports is a shining example of that. We would like to thank Advanced Sim Racing for being one of the other proud partners of Operation eMotorsports. Without them, this series and these broadcasts would not be possible. I'm sure these drivers are going to be enjoying the tantalizing opportunity of winning some sim racing gift cards. A lot of sim racing stuff is a little bit on the pricey end, so I'm sure these drivers gonna be very, very happy if they walk away from this season in the middle of October with a gift card heading their way. And now, while this field is heading their way around the carousel for the final time under pace car conditions, I'm curious, Charles, if you had one word to describe the kind of racing that we're going to be expecting tonight, what would you go for?
Flat out. We'll call that hyphenated, one word. It's just one of the, this is, it's called the National Park of Speed because it's a flat out track. There are some heavy braking zones, but primarily you're on the gas, foot to the floor for most of the lap. So it's going to be fun racing. I'm looking forward to it. And I just give a shout out to the pace truck because we don't normally see the pace truck out leading these grids, so that's always cool to get the pace truck out there.
I'll tell you what, that pace truck is very, very grippy. I think if an actual truck went around some of these corners with the speed that thing has gone by, it would either skid off the track or flip. And I think on the subject of talking about Barber, I remember a formative memory many, many years ago of a truck flipping at Barber. I think it was in 2018, maybe, trying to test my IndyCar-ish knowledge, because I know it was happening during the IndyCar race weekend that year. However, what year it was remains to be determined, but nevertheless...
I'm going to say 2019 because I think I was there. So I think that's when it was.
Yeah, I think you may be correct. It's 2018. It was raining, but nevertheless, that pace truck has made that turn to go down pit lane. The field is now going to be in the hands of the LMP2 pole sitters who've grabbed the green flag. The green's down. The drivers are on their way, and the 5-pack of LMP2 cars are now heading their way down into turn number 1. Very good overtaking opportunity if you judge it right, but a very big opportunity to try and get it desperately, desperately wrong. But these drivers at the front of the field have mastered it beautifully. Clean heading through 1. Connor Paris is going to be leading them, heading into 3 the first time by Greg Meismer, the driver in the pro beneficiary category, right behind in second. Meanwhile, the LMGT3 category is underway, and you can see the pack of GT3 race cars going down that start-finish straightaway. A driver already down pit lane. I'm not sure who that is. That I believe may be Jake Porter, but nevertheless, these drivers heading their way through 1, 2, and 3 right now. Fairly clean, which is a little bit surprising, a point that I did want to bring up earlier on in this broadcast. With the stop-start nature of this track, chaos can happen, and it's already happened coming out of turn number 3. That, I believe, is Gene Kelly in the Mercedes, and this is going to be a big one. You can see drivers skidding all across the track. A Corvette spinning onto the grass. America's National Park of Speed has already been these drivers badly coming out of turn 3. Nearly another collision hanging to turn number 5 in the midst of that LMGT3 chaos. But looking up and down the field, I believe some of these drivers have gone away from that incident, and the big schmozzle coming out of 3 mostly unscathed. But that, I think, was just about 3 incidents happening at pretty much the same point of the racetrack. We saw one spinner cut away from it, and then all hell broke loose as it came out of 3.
Yeah, we did see that. I think that was one of those, it was maybe just an overreaction coming out of that corner and seeing the car sideways. And then, you know, saw a couple guys just gotta hold those brakes once you're sideways. You don't be rolling back across the track and picking up some collateral damage there. But good start by the LMPs. I did see Wallace made a really nice move in turn one. They were trying to go 3 wide. He just kind of slipped up the inside. So nice job by him. Yeah, I think the car coming out of the pits was Salmon. I think he just missed the start of the race. So I think he pit started and just said, I'll just start from the back and work my way up. But good job by a couple of drivers. Saw Manning there going into turn 5 as coming down, trying to go through. There's another spin that looks like that's Ayat. I think that's Ayat in his Audi. Just lost it on those curbs coming out of the final corner.
And yes, it is Ayat, stopped in the gravel trap on the outside of the final turn around this racetrack, coming around that last corner to complete lap 1, and he is still in that gravel trap waiting for an excruciating period of time, trying to rejoin the racetrack and try not to lose as much time as he has. And here was that mistake, just a little bit of oversteer. Yep. Midway through the corner, yeah, he just lost rear grip badly. That wasn't even any sort of contact or extracurricular maneuvers going on that ended in him going off the track.
Yeah, you know, and we talked about, you know, the different cars. Each one of these GT3s have different characteristics. And Audi just has been an upgrade to their, I guess, what they call the Evo package in iRacing here in the last season or so. But it still wants to try and kill you every now and then. That's always kind of the profile of the Audi. Very, very, it's not necessarily the fastest car on track, but very slippery in the corners. But then, you know, there's always that opportunity to kind of overdo it. And I think that may have been what happened with Ayat.
Just overcooked it a teeny tiny bit, and it ended in tears. And I think we're going to take a look at another replay of the drama that took place on lap 1. I think there's some more drama. I believe that may have been Salmon that was down pit lane. But here's a replay of what happened to Gene Kelly. We're following him in the Eternal Racing Ferrari, heading his way around turn number 3. Got a little bit of help from the Corvette that was right behind him. That resulted in some significant suspension damage. And as the field was scrambling, trying to avoid that stopped car, all sorts of hell breaks loose right behind him. That's a pretty significant whack that resulted in that damage for Kelly's Ferrari. That just ended in tears, and we're going to be following one of the drivers that had some contact that kicked off part 2 of that incident. Brandon Mateo actually got hit, it must be said. I believe the BMW that was alongside him made a little bit of rear contact, got him sideways, got him all sorts of squirrely, and you can see that 2-car incident, whatever you want to judge it, with that original incident involving Gene Kelly, that just snowballed entirely out of control. And speaking of out of control, that's Jacob Little. That's heading around the final corners and some significant damage on that 74 Mustang. And I think something just happened here to the American. What it is ain't exactly clear.
That's true. Looks like he got a little deep there coming through Canada. And yeah, I think he just kind of stayed in the grass too long. And you can run the grass and it's going to slow your car down, but it doesn't necessarily have the same grip as the tarmac does. And as you pick up speed, it just kind of gets loose, and I think maybe he made some contact with the barrier.
Yeah, I think there may have been some sort of incident heading through the kink, possibly. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. Hopefully we can find a replay to see exactly how he picked up that damage, because that car was not looking good at all.
Nope, that's not surprising. It's, you know, I mentioned that at the Open, it's like you have to be very careful making moves in and around the kink because it's one of those fast corners that you're basically, if you're not just with a feather lift coming through that corner, then you're basically flat out as we see them coming back down through. Yep, just carried too much speed and over in the grass, and there's the contact with the barrier. Yeah, my guess is at this point now he's just got front left wheel damage, and it's just work. Yeah, you can see the steering wheel kind of canted off to the right, so he's got some right hand down, just trying to keep the car going in a straight line.
Yeah, that was a huge amount of contact with that outside wall heading down between the kink and Canada corner. That was a huge hit, and I think if that barrier wasn't there, Jacob Little probably would have ended up in Minnesota, but nevertheless, these drivers throwing a battle up and down this field. Oh my God, who was that coming in? That was Tyler Reed, who nearly just got the hip check to end all hip checks, heading into Canada corner. Oh, that was incredibly close with himself and Dave Bell. Now Jake Porter trying to pick up the pieces after the mistake that the BMW 313 car had heading into Canada corner. That was a matter of inches separating those two cars heading in to the 12th corner on this racetrack. If they were just, if he had hit the brakes probably a couple of inches later, that would have ended a multi-car incident for sure. But nevertheless, it has thrown this GT3 field into a little bit of chaos. I mean, the GT3 race has already been a little bit chaotic thus far, side by side, heading into turn number 1. Looks like that Corvette is nearly going to get that move done. A little bit of dust being kicked up from the Audi right in tow. These drivers going side by side, heading into turn number 3 right now. Ooh, big sort of snap there from Jake Porter in the TFG Racing number 49. He keeps it going in a straight line, however, lost out on a teeny tiny bit of time. Meanwhile, Mike Sachs, the open GT3 driver from New York, the driver of the 599 Porsche, trying to get a move done on the Ferrari, who runs wide, heading into turn number 5, and that is going to gain him another spot. Meanwhile, another car going off the track. That was Richard Davenport, I believe. That was heading through turn number 6. That he ran wide. You can see the the tracks heading through the grass and gravel on the outside of the corner. Gotta say one thing about Road America. It may not be FIA Grade 1 certified, but this track has a whole lot of character, and the grass and gravel runoff that lines this track is part of the reason why it has all that character.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can just see there's, mentioned that earlier, turn 6 is very, very tricky. Because of the braking zone being right at the crest of that hill, as we see the LMP2 starting to work through some of the back marker traffic of the GT3 class. Still following on board with Wallace there, and go back to mention the GT3s. All these cars, as we mentioned, last week, and then already at the start of this week, they all have different characteristics. We've got front engine cars, mid-engine cars, rear-engine cars that have different levels of performance, different levels of braking, and so what we're seeing a lot of is just some of these cars are just better performance-wise in some of these braking zones than others, and so you're seeing a little discrepancy as the season goes on. As we see a spin there with the BMW, could not catch who that was, but it looked like he had some previous damage already. So we'll see if we can catch that. John Hicks, seems like I saw, maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was the other BMW that was passing him, but it looked like he might have had some damage already. But he's definitely coming into the pits now to get some repairs, probably take his fuel on board. We're getting to a point now that we can probably get to the end of the race with the fuel they've got, as we see him coming in through 8, just a little deep, back onto the track. So,
I think that may have been the first off track in a string of off tracks. Yeah, sorry to step on your toes there, Charles. No. Yeah, I think there may have been multiple moments, maybe struggling for grip early on.
Yeah, maybe just to finish my thought is as the season goes on, these guys will get more familiar with each other and those cars, and some of these things where you're seeing where you're basically getting a little hip check or a little punt from the back in the braking zones. Those will start going away as they get more familiar with how each other race and what the capabilities of these other cars are.
Yeah, that's a big thing when it comes to a series like this. Only 8 races long, so comfortability is a big factor in this season. And when everything's said and done tonight, is going to mark a quarter of the way through the season already. So that is going to be a big thing when it comes to these drivers trying to get into a comfort zone that they feel comfortable in these race cars, whether it be drivers in the GT3 field or the LMP2s. These drivers going to be pushing it to the limit, but they don't want to do moves like that. Hunter Reeve doing some aggressive maneuvering, heading into turn number 13. Tyler Goodmel, the driver in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 car, currently running second in class. He is feeling the burn as well, trying to go tit for tat with the car a little bit farther up the road. That I believe, yeah, it was Reeve that he was battling with. That was some pretty tense stuff as he went through Canada corner into turn 13. Hunter Reeve being exceptionally brave thus far through the lap traffic, which, considering how these races usually go, it's kind of something that you have to do. You need to push that envelope a little bit, and considering my experience doing some race officiating and some race stewarding and race control as well, I think those are all pretty much the same thing. Just seeing GT3 and prototype races where these drivers start to push the limits a little bit more. This driver has pushed the limits. That's Ayotte in the TFG Racing number 2 Audi, and I think he just had an off-track moment. Gonna take a look at a replay to see exactly what went wrong for the driver, now running 11th in the GT3 Open category, heading his way through turn number 5, and oh, it's a T-bone moment. Oh, that's so unfortunate for the both of them. A simple spin for the BMW. I'm not sure who that was in the BMW that he T-boned, but that was a goofy looking collision, it must be said, and I believe it may have... Oh, I'm trying to figure out who exactly that was in the BMW. They towed back to pits. They got some pretty significant damage. We're going to try and find that replay to see exactly who it may have been. Gonna add Daniel Salmon had an off-track moment earlier on in this race. I noted a little while ago that he was missing a rear wing, and oh, that's a significant hit into the inside wall coming out of the kink. I'm curious how he lost the rear wing, because, I mean, obviously some pretty significant front-end damage on the front of that number 4 Corvette, and then maybe a little bit of extracurricular activity a little bit farther down the line. So I'm trying to figure out who that BMW is that was in pit lane. I believe that may have been Brandon Mateo in the 111 BMW that went off track, because he's in the pits right now, has been for a little while, and is still continuing to lose time fixing the damage on that 111 BMW. Not ideal for the beneficiary driver. A spin hang through turn number 5. It wasn't anything major, that spin. If we can find a replay, we'll know entirely for sure. But it couldn't have been a major spin, because he was stopped close to the racing surface, and then just tough luck seeing that 2 car of Ayotte come in, and I think we will be able to find the replay of the spin that Mateo had that really kickstarted that Chamazo heading through 5.
Yeah, just too deep, too hard back on the throttle coming out of 5. Yeah, it just, you know, unfortunately, just that's the racing line coming through there, and he was just basically at the point where he's going to get back on the throttle, and then there's a car in front of him. So unfortunate for him, unfortunate for both guys. You know, you don't want to add injury to insult after having a spin on your own, and then just getting crunched by another car. Ooh, as we see Rick Hazlitt there, all over the back of that Porsche. Who is that? Is that Elizondo, I think, just in front of him? Yeah. So obviously Corvette looking pretty good. He's trying to challenge that Porsche. Let's see if he can get a run coming down through here. Maybe make a try for a pass between the kink and Canada corner. So let's see. Yeah, just a little bit of oversteer had to correct there, so kind of lost a little bit of time coming out of that. But a good run through there. He's flat coming through there, coming through the kink. So looking to the inside. He says, "No, I'm not quite close enough yet. I'm just going to hang on, see if he makes a mistake. I can take the easy pass, but nope." So we're going to hang in this tail and wait for the next opportunity.
Yeah, that's a big thing when it comes to these multi-class GT3 races, is trying to find a good opportunity, as that was the Corvette off the track. Another Corvette, that's Tyler Reed coming out of Canada corner in a cloud of tire smoke. He rejoins the track safely in the number 47 Vet. However, he is going to be dropping down the running order, currently running 7th in the Open GT3 field. Soon going to turn into 8th, as Porter just got a move done on him heading into turn 14. I can see Daniel Salmon involved in that as well. And here is a replay of the the driver now running P8 in that open GT3 class, coming around Canada corner, and oh, he had contact with that inside wall as well, and that was a pretty significant whack on the front end of that Corvette as well. I don't think he picked up too much damage, which is a little bit surprising considering in the world of iRacing the tire barriers are usually made out the matter of white dwarf stars, but nevertheless, Reed very lucky to get away with one there, because I think if he was running in, say, a P2 car, for instance, I think his front suspension would have been entirely out of whack.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If that had been an LMP2 car, he would have major aero problems. You know, and we'll go back to the GT3s a bit, is, you know, looks like some of these guys, you know, you have to pick your poison here as we see, that's, and that's why that's again the kink. That's why that's so dangerous. You know, the LMP2s have to get around these slower GT3 cars, but that's just such a treacherous place to make a move. It looks like some of these GT3s maybe, you know, having to fight the car a little bit. Maybe they've taken some rear wing out to try and maximize their straight line speed, and it's kind of hurting them in these in some of these corners where they need that extra downforce to try and make it through safely.
Yeah, that was a point that I was going to mention not very long ago in this broadcast. Some side-by-side action here in the open GT3 class, and a spin coming out of the corner. That was Russell Elizondo in the Crazy Horse Racing 101 car. That was a pretty big spin, and you could see the front bumper gone on that car, the rear wing gone as well. Both of those parts probably going to end up on eBay before this race is done. We're going to take a look at a replay to see how that Porsche got shortened by quite a significant amount, heading side by side nearly through the braking zone into Canada corner, and he just cooked it a teeny tiny bit. Saw that mistake from Tyler Reed just a couple of moments ago, and it hits another driver, that being the Porsche number 101, having an exact similar moment heading through Canada corner, albeit picking up a little bit of damage. And now Jason McSparron, there we go. Jason McSparron comes down pit lane and stops in the number 22 Mustang. I'll go back to the point that I've been meaning to mention for the past like 18 minutes of this race. Considering my experience in race officiating for multi-class sports car racing, I know that these drivers, especially in the prototype cars, feel like they're playing a game of chicken, so to speak. One driver forces that issue a little bit, then another one tries to force the issue as well, and that just gets to the point where these drivers start trading blows and going for a ridiculous move after a ridiculous move after another ridiculous move, and it just gets to the point where someone is going to be hit by it. Someone's got to get screwed over in the midst of all of that. If they go for a ridiculous maneuver, someone's going to end up in the barrier. Says Martin Wallace may take a one-way trip to the barrier. That was an incredibly close call between himself and I believe that was Tyler Gomet that he was side-by-side with. Keep it clean, Martin. Good Lord, the rally action. Trying to rejoin the racetrack on the outside of turn 14. iRacing does a really good job laser scanning the racing surface, but they don't scan the runoff area, and I think we saw that get put on full display with Martin Wallace getting bad flashbacks to another broadcast here on Apex Racing TV when our Apex Racing TV colleague J.R. Gregory went into low Earth orbit in a Radical SR10. That was a wild ride for Wallace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just see, he's just battling with Guillemette coming out of the bend into the final corner, and just Guillemette just brakes a little bit earlier than Wallace expected, has to take some evasive maneuvers, goes off into the gravel, comes back out and finds a bump, and so gets a little air there, but manages to get it righted and gets back out on the track. So he'll have a little more work to get back to that as we see Elizondo back out on the track. Looks like he either has already used his fast repair or decided not to take it, but is at least on my screen, looks like he's still missing a few crucial parts of that car, primarily that rear wing. Is going to be beneficial for him making some of these corners at the proper speed.
Well, considering I've lived in the city of Philadelphia for all the 19 3/4 years that I've been on planet Earth, I have seen worse cars driving around going about 100 miles an hour down I-95, but that's still some pretty significant damage, and that car will be driving more like a hoopty rod than anything else. Anthony Calvi now stopping in his box with a little bit of front-end damage. I think I saw the bumper missing off that Mercedes AMG car, but right now we've got another Mercedes leading the Open GT3 field in front of this man, Ty Sherling, and that BMW running second, 7.5 seconds behind this man, Kobe All. The Eternal Racing number 3 car has been dominant thus far in this season. Of course, took a dominating victory 1 week ago at Daytona, and as it stands at the moment, 21 minutes into this 45-minute race, it looks like Kobe is trying to go for the double, but at the moment he doesn't have the biggest gap between a leader and second place in the GT3 cars. This man does. It's Ian Carney in the 4-wide Motorsports number 54 Porsche. He is leading by 18.8 seconds over Masters running second in that beneficiary GT3 category, and 18 coming up to 19-second gap between himself and the Mustang running in P2 is quite impressive. The LMP2 class is a little bit harder to gauge. I believe we may have a small little graphical issue. Currently, we only have 3 drivers running in the Pro LMP2 field: Paris, Reeve, and Wallace. Wallace currently running the last of the Pro LMP2 drivers, 15.5, teetering around that 15.5 to 16 second threshold. There's now some more drivers coming down pit lane. There's a 4th place car in Open GT3. That's Ryan Salone in the 4-wide Motorsports number 77 Corvette. He now stops in his box, currently running 5th now in the Open GT3 field. But Paris is leading overall in the Pro LMP2 class. Meanwhile, in Pro Beneficiary, it's the opposite to the running order that we had 1 week ago at the checkered flag. Greg Meismer leading over Tyler Gilmette, currently 2.6 seconds separating those 2 cars, the only 2 in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 class. But as Silone rejoins Sileon, we're maybe gonna have to try and find some clarification.
I'm gonna go with Sileon, but that's just
Sileon. There we go.
Yeah, just for me, but.
I think, I mean, Philadelphians are always kind of derided as being uncultured, so to speak, so I think that could be my Philadelphia enemy coming through a little bit. But Ryan Stillion in that 4-wide Motorsports car out and away, and I think we have Dave Bell. Oh my God, there's some significant damage on the front of that race car. That was some sketchy stuff heading through the braking zone on turn number 5. I think there's still a little bit of damage on that Bell Motorsports 313 BMW. We saw him go off the track not terribly long ago, and as one driver still marches along, another driver in the GT3 class has come in. This is Jacob Little, who we saw involved in an incident not terribly long ago. The Vandelay Industries Racing number 74 car has some damage again. That's some significant damage too. I thought, okay, he's just coming in for a scheduled pit stop, and then it was a little bit of a comedic camera switch, at least from my end, seeing the significant damage on the front end of that race car. Not sure exactly what happened to Jacob Little there. It looked like there may have been an incident heading into the final corner.
Oh yeah, so he kind of lost it coming into the final corner and kind of half spun, and I believe it was the U.S. Air Force liveried car. There we go, McSparran, that just was trying to make his way around and basically gave him a sympathy spin and kind of sideswiped him. So that's what you saw out of Little. And we mentioned earlier, you mentioned Calvi. We showed him coming into the pits earlier and getting his fast repair. I think he had that damage from lap 1, from the incident lap 1, and just rode it out. And so, hats off to him. He just kind of said, you know what? Okay, I don't have a front end in the car. The car still feels like it's running, and that Merc power obviously is going to push him down the straight, since it wasn't feel like he was losing a lot of time. So he just kind of rode it out until his pit stop.
I gotta give credit where credit's due to these drivers racing around this racetrack with a significantly damaged race car. I mean, I'm slow enough as is, so I feel like even with a car in tip-top shape, I wouldn't be nearly as fast as some of these drivers with some significant damage on the GT3 cars that they're running in side by side. Colby Ohl, you gotta give the man credit for still pushing it and dealing with the lap traffic in the way that he did, heading into the kinks side by side. You usually wouldn't see a driver with an 8.5-second lead go for a move like that, but he just did. So, I mean, credit where credit's due to him. Hunter Reeve has now come in the Pro LMP2 class. He's currently running third of the cars in that field. Well, now running in third ever since this pit stop. So we'll see how long he stays stopped in his box. Now over halfway through this 45-minute long race with 25.5 minutes on the clock. Hunter Reeve now exiting out. He's going to remain in third in the Pro LMP2 field because we only have 3 LMP2 Pro drivers. We're going to be rejoining the race in some clean air as well. And Charles, around this track with some pretty fast corners, having clean air on your out lap could be a very huge benefit towards your way.
Absolutely, yeah. He picked the right time. He came out in clean air. It's got a nice gap in front of him. He doesn't have to worry about battling traffic. So he can just go out and run fast laps until he encounters some cars that he's going to have to deal with, and hopefully those end up in good locations for him that he can make some nice easy passes. But that should help him. That should help make up some of that gap to the cars in front while he's out there running by himself.
And I think considering how Hunter Reeve's race has gone thus far, I think he will very much take a break like that. Speaking of a driver who's had a pretty tough night, this is Gene Kelly currently exiting the pits. Ian Carney came in to pit lane from the lead in the beneficiary GT3 class. He has now relinquished the lead and spent 18.6 seconds down in his pit stall, 60 seconds, nearly 59.9 down in pit lane. This pit lane is incredibly long. It feels somewhat torturous in a way going down the pit lane. Speaking of torturous, finally Russell Elanzado in that Porsche has come down pit lane to repair the damage. Credit where credit's due to the man. The fact that he's running in fourth in that beneficiary GT3 field with a car that looked all but ready for the scrap heap is unbelievable. Well done to him. He's going to be exiting out now. You can see that puff of smoke from a little bit farther down pit lane. He's going to be out and away now, running fifth in that beneficiary GT3 category. Will he maintain that spot? I believe he will, as most of the other drivers around him came down pit lane, mainly Dave Bell, who's running sixth in the class and spent far more time down in his pit stall and far more time down pit lane. Ended up being, yeah, you can see 1 minute and 7.8 seconds compared to Russell in the 50s, and you can see pit stop time wise, Dave Bell 23.1 to compared to Russell's 16.5. So usually in these races, especially races that are a little bit on the longer end, pit stop length, even in those races, can be a huge determining factor. And here with these races, which in the world of endurance racing, 45 minutes is pretty much a flat-out sprint, that can make a huge difference in terms of where you end up finishing in this race.
It definitely can. Yeah, you gotta maximize your time or minimize your time through your pit stop. Because that, as we said, that can win or lose your race. You pick up 3 or 4 seconds or lose 3 or 4 seconds. And that may be the difference as we see some traffic here. Most of the GT3 field is stopped. We've only got, I think, 4 or 5 cars left to pit from GT3. And still for the LMP2 class, only Reeve has pitted. The other 4 have, as we see another car off in the kink, safely rejoins.
That, I believe, was Tyler Reed. I can see the number 47 on the back of that Corvette. Man, even my water bottle was excited. Hopefully that pop from my water bottle wasn't covered on my microphone here on Apex Racing TV tonight. But nevertheless, Tyler Reed coming into pit lane mainly for a change of tires, possibly for a splash and dash of gas, but possibly also for a change of pants, because that was a very close call coming out of the kink just a few moments ago. Meanwhile, another Tyler, that being Tyler Manning, currently running third in the open GT3 field. Kobe All has still not come down pit lane. Neither has Ty Schuring in the BMW right behind, running second in that open GT3 field. See, these drivers going for some very split strategies. I'm curious if we're going to have another split between these drivers running in the open GT3 field. But knowing my luck, I just said, and both these drivers are going to come down pit lane on the exact same lap.
Yeah, it's very possible. That is very possible. Yeah, so we're getting to the point now that I think just based on what we did last week, I think 32 minutes is probably the max you're going to get on fuel. So it's going to be time for everybody to come in and get their stops made. As you said, you still got Oil Ensuring out there. McDade has taken over the lead of the beneficiary class by the fact that he has not stopped yet. And then we've also got Mike Sachs, who's currently running 5th overall in GT3 and 3rd in the open class, still yet to stop.
Yeah, lots of drivers going for some interesting strategy calls. If I harken my mind back just 1 week ago to the opening race of the season at Daytona, drivers going for some split strategies then, and I think we've had a driver come into the pits in the pro beneficiary category, that being one of only the second driver in the LMP2 cars to come down pit lane. That is Greg Meismer, who has spent a decent chunk of this race in the pro beneficiary lead. So he's now come down pit lane. That relinquishes it to Tyler Gilmette, who of course won last time out at Daytona. So maybe the fight between those two going to heat up yet again. Last time out at Daytona, those two were battling tooth and nail during the second half. Then the pit stops came and they spread out a little bit more, but right now these drivers aren't spread out, making a little bit of contact as well. Literally nothing separating these drivers. That was Tyler Manning getting a move done on the, I believe that was that Ian Carney running second in the beneficiary GT3 class. Yeah, you can see Tyler Manning running 3rd in the open GT3s, and Ryan Salone in that Corvette running 4th in the open GT3s. But you can see some side-by-side action now heading into turn number 5. These drivers starting to battle a little bit harder than they have so far in this race. The 74 car getting that move done to dispatch some beneficiary GT3 traffic. That's the thing that I need to wrap my mind around, so to speak, when it comes to these races, is because you've got 2 different types of cars, but you've got 4 classes. So the interclass mingling with the exact same cars is usually a big factor in these races, and we're seeing that get put on full display right now as Hunter Reeve is very close to the back of the car right in front of him, which I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, is Tyler Gilmelt.
I think you're correct. Yeah, I think that was the 599 car of Sachs. It was being overtaken by Manning earlier. But yeah, so we're on board here with Hunter Reeve, and he's right behind, he's right behind Meismer, is the car in front of him. And I'm checking my screen there. Gumet is still yet to pit, so it's still on track, and he's about 40 seconds ahead of this group here.
I think I should maybe correct myself and say that was Tyler Gilmette, not Tyler Gilmelt, or whatever name I said a few moments ago. I apologize to Tyler. I think I had many very strange pronunciations of his name 1 week ago at Daytona, but nevertheless, we got squared away now, and he's actually running effectively in no man's land right now, 40 seconds in front of Greg Meismer, running 2nd in the pro beneficiary category, the driver from New England. Trying to extend that gap, but he will have to come into the pits soon, and that's an off track for Jonathan Winkler, the number 127 car. That's off the track on the outside of turn number 8, so I think we're going to load up a replay to see the Resilience 127 Mustang go off the track. I looked at the word Resilience in the team name, and my mind just completely blanked on it there. So if you heard, Charles, if you smelled smoke there a few moments ago, that was my brain just overcooking itself, just as Jonathan just overcooked his tires with that spin hang through turn number 8, and that was quite possibly the worst segue I've made so far tonight.
Yeah, but we're not done yet. So you got time to do better. So yeah, just Winker's having a little difficult time. I think that's a couple of times I've seen him maybe have a little trouble with turn 8, as we see Gumet finally coming into the pits for his pit stop. So we'll see if that clean air and running by himself has helped him out. He was I think 6 or 7 seconds behind Meismer before the pit, so we'll see where he comes out and where he kind of shuffles back into that the timing and scoring once he gets done with his pit stop.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how he exits out in reference to Greg Meismer. He's been out on track for a while. You can see the pit stop times. Meismer spent 18 seconds even down in his pit box. Let's see what Tyler Gilmette does in the number 5 Pro Ben LMP2 car. 13 seconds, only 13, coming in for a splash and dash. And this may be enough for him to take the lead. It's going to be very close on exit. Looks like Gilmette is going to take the lead in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 field. Well done for him, spending a lot less time down in the pits. 53.1 seconds out and away, and ooh, you can see Meismer nearly running into the back of a GT3 car heading through turn number 3. That was very close to unfortunate contact involving the ZFG Racing number 75 car, who's now in a dogfight between himself and Gilmette between now and the end of this race, which is coming up in less than 10 minutes time. You can see him now. He's got a fight on his hands with himself and Hunter Reeve, the TFG Racing car. These two drivers, I believe, they are, I think they've been on top of each other pretty much ever since the drop of the green flag. And Hunter Reeve, he is not taking any ifs, ands, or buts. He sees an LMP2 car. He's going to battle it. He doesn't care about the fact that Meismer is involved in his own class fight. But well done from Tyler Gilmette to be able to stretch out that gallon of gas, that tank of gas that he started this race in, and be able to go all the way up until about 10 minutes left and just have a much shorter stop. I think if we came in a few laps earlier, it really wouldn't have worked. So well done from Gilmette to exit out with the Pro Beneficiary lead. Meanwhile, Hunter Reeve maybe trying to get a move done into Canada corner on the Pro Ben driver of Meismer, very close to making contact. I think there were definitely a little bit of paint being traded between those two cars heading through Canada corner, but Hunter Reeve going to get that move done. That is not a battle for class, mind you. However, Hunter Reeve may find himself in a good position in a couple of moments time as Paris and Martin Wallace, the two drivers running in front of him in the Pro LMP2 field, have come down pit lane as well. So we'll see how they exit out in reference to Hunter Reeve in the 44 TFG Racing LMP2 car. Hunter Reeve is actually going to jump in front of Wallace, however not close enough to get by Paris, who's 11.5 seconds a little bit farther up the road. Martin Wallace going to drop down to the final podium position and the final position in the Pro LMP2 category. You can see how those pit stops worked out. Paris spending 50.9 seconds out and away on a pit lane compared to Hunter Reeve's 58.5 and Wallace's 52.5. But that was a enthralling series of about 2.5 minutes there, Charles. So a lot of battling, and I think it's still going to continue as Reeve is still in front of Greg Meismer, and Gilmette, there we go, third time's a charm, is beginning to pull away in that Pro Beneficiary LMP2 field.
He is, and this traffic is gonna, it's either, we'll see if it helps him or hurts him. We got a trio of looks like 2 Mustangs, and I think that's a Ferrari up in front. So he's cleared the first one. We worked our way through the carousel. He's going to get to the inside of the second Mustang, and now we're going to get up, and it's just, this one's just worked out for him really, really nicely. Gets by that Ferrari after the kink. The other 2 guys have to kind of work with that second Mustang, and I believe that was I'm trying to remember who that was. It's in that black and gold. Oh, and we have the Ferrari off. That's going to kind of shake things up a bit.
I'm not sure who that Ferrari was. I think we're definitely going to have to take a look at a replay heading that wide into Canada corner. That didn't even look like it was close. I think they may very well end up in Canada when everything is said and done. I think it may have been Charles St. Pierre that went off the track. We'll maybe trying to find that replay in just a couple of moments time to see him overcooking it. We have a whole lot of replays to take a look at because this race has absolutely been insane. This, I believe, is a replay of I believe this may be an incident involving John Hicks. A little bit glitched out on my end. Charles, do you have this replay?
No, unfortunately I don't.
Well, So we're going to get our producer Josh to fill us in. Thankfully, you, the viewers watching this stream, either on the Operation Motorsports YouTube channel or on Apex Racing TV, were able to see that. I think that may have just been a small little overslow moment there for Hicks. So we'll hopefully maybe try and find some more replays. This race has been pretty nuts, and honestly, not as attrition-packed as I was honestly expecting, considering the stop-start nature of this racetrack. I was expecting many drivers to have some off-track excursions. Charles St. Pierre was one of them. I think this is a replay of the off-track moment he had heading into Canada Corner not terribly long ago, and I will say there's still some damage on the front end of that Ferrari. So dealing with his own troubles is a driver of the number 31 Crazy Racing Ferrari.
Yeah, it's it's been a tough race for a few of these drivers out here. Just haven't been able to get the handle of the car properly as we're looking. I'm not sure what this replay is, so still glitched out on my side. So,
simple lazy spin, as our producer Josh likes to call it, from the Porsche that we saw get just shortened quite a lot in an incident coming out of Canada Corner. So that was heading out of turn number 6 where that simple spin happened. And here's another moment, this involving the 4-wide Motorsports number 20 car of Anthony Calvi. He's currently running 7th in the Open GT3 field, may have lost out on a few positions. That could be maybe the reason why he lost a little bit of time, just ran wide and through turn number 5. I don't think anything else happened there, so just a small little off-track excursion. Heading into 5, the heaviest braking zone on this track by far. You're woeing it up, and in those GT3 race cars, you really have to drop the anchor. I think Calvi just had another moment, because I could see some off-track tire marks coming out of turn number 5, so losing a little bit of time as he just got overtaken by Guillemette, who is still leading in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 field, and actually extending that gap quite a lot. Meanwhile, Calvi nearly getting into it with, I believe that was Hunter Reeve that he was going side by side with heading into turn number 5 just a handful of moments ago. Actually, yeah, that was Hunter Reeve in the TFG Racing number 44. At this point, things starting to cool off a teeny tiny bit, Charles. We've got Connor Parise leading Pro LMP2 by 9.7 seconds. In Pro Beneficiary LMP2, it's Tyler Guillemette leading that over Greg Meismer, 3.3 seconds separating those two cars, which is much closer than it was at the checkered flag 1 week ago at the Daytona International Speedway. Meanwhile, Kobe Ole continuing his dominance in the Open GT3 field, currently 14.5 seconds in front of Tyler Schuring. That was a wonderful camera transition there. Thank you very much, Josh, for that one. And that's Tyler Schuring, the Rick Over Racing number 46 BMW. Been pretty fast. I mean, considering the gap that he has between himself and Tyler Manning in P2 and P3 respectively in the Open GT3 field, you gotta say, very fast driver, but Kobe Ole just cranking it up to 100. And speaking of cranking it up to 100, the 4-wide Motorsports number 54 Porsche of Ian Carney has just kicked on the afterburners. Or to invoke a little bit of Spaceball, a little Spaceballs reference, if anyone ever saw that movie, they have turned on the Cuisinart so far in this race, 20.5 seconds in front of Tanner Masters in that Ford Mustang. I think that was a good time that I just mentioned Spaceballs to say that maybe my brother giving me a CD copy of Spaceballs when we moved out of the house back in 2013 when I was 8 years old, maybe the reason why I ended up as screwed up in the head as I am now.
It might have something to do with it, as we see Carney there making a move around on the outside of Canada Corner to pass the lap traffic. It's really slow. He's John Hicks there, just doing a good job of letting everybody, unless he's not picking that speed up. Yeah, it looks like he may be out of gas, maybe just a lap too little. Yeah, he's basically out of fuel. It is going to be very difficult to get back to the back up to the start finish line since it's uphill. So it might be better off just to tow that car and get it off the track. And save himself a little bit of time, make himself get a early exit off the track and first in line at the snack bar after the race. As we see there, McSparron working his way through, and there's our leader Connor Parise in the Pro LMP2 class. Nice 9.5 second gap over Guillemette in P2 overall in the LMP2 field. But leading the Pro Beneficiary class, as we saw as they passing by Hicks, he's still trying to chug, trying to get back to the pits. I
don't even think he's moving anymore. Actually, no. I think he just towed back. Understandably so, because that was going to be a dangerous position for anyone to find themselves in. Just seeing a BMW parked around this racetrack, narrow in its design, old school in its nature, built all the way back in the 50s, if I'm very much mistaken. My motorsports history knowledge getting tested a teeny tiny bit there, but this track is narrow, and seeing a BMW GT3 car parked on any spot is very sketchy, because let's face it, the BMW a little bit big in the world of GT3 racing. But nevertheless, I think we have a little bit of a battle developing here, to invoke a little bit of the correct terminology. That is Hunter Reeve, who I gotta say credit where credit's due to Hunter Reeve. He has slowly drawn in that gap to himself and Connor Parise, but it's just not going to be enough with the checkered flag coming out in a few moments' time. Hunter Reeve now maybe trying to size up a move in the not too distant future between himself and Tyler Gilmette, giving us a nice finish between P2 and P3 overall in this race. The driver running P1 in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 class, and Hunter Reeve running P2 in the Pro LMP2 class. Very close, heading their way through the carousel for the final time in this 45-minute race. A little bit farther up the road from them is Connor Parise, and he is going to be bringing that car home. The number 11 going to be dominant in this race. Grab the pole, and it looks like he's going to be taking a dominant victory in just a few moments' time. Ooh, look at that from Hunter Reeve. All kinds of squirrely on the braking zone, heading into Canada corner, but just not enough to get that move done to overtake the Pro Ben leader and possibly winner of Tyler Gilmette. But meanwhile, Connor Parise in that number 11 LMP2 car is going to take a dominant win here from the second race of the Operation eMotorsports Racing League at Road America. He wins in the Pro LMP2 category. Meanwhile, in the Pro Beneficiary field, it's Tyler Gilmette winning it over Greg Meismer. So for the second race in a row, those two finishing P1 and P2 respectively. Much closer than it was at Daytona 1 week ago, with only 2.5 seconds separating those two drivers after over 45 minutes of racing action. Hunter Reeve, meanwhile, ended up P2 in Pro LMP2, with Martin Wallace rounding out your podium and field in the Pro LMP2s. Meanwhile, Kobe Old takes a dominant win in Open GT3. He wins by over 15 seconds between himself and Ty Schuring in P2. Meanwhile, waiting for a few moments time to see Ian Carney in that dominant Beneficiary Porsche. The number 54 four-wide motorsports car has been at the front throughout a decent chunk of this race. And really, at this point, he can afford to run out of gas as long as he isn't running on fumes as is. That Mustang of Tanner Masters running second in the Beneficiary GT3 field, 22, teetering around 22 seconds back. Yeah, you can see that number 72 heading through the kink for the final time in this race, running second in the Beneficiary GT3 field. But back to the leader of Carney. He goes onto the start-finish straightaway for the final time. I don't think we'll be able to see the cold, soulless eyes of the iRacing driver avatars, but nevertheless, Ian Carney going to take a dominant victory here at Road America. His iRacing guy, the graphics on his face may not equate to it, but he will be very happy with the great performance that he put on this evening. Meanwhile, Tanner Masters in the Code 3 Motorsports car running second in that Beneficiary GT3 field, involved in a photo finish. That's not for class position, however, that is for overall spots. That was him along with a Ferrari. I believe that was Charles St. Pierre that he was going side by side with. I think St. Pierre getting dragged down a whole lot with that damage he picked up with that offhang through Canada corner not terribly long ago, where it looked like he just overcooked it. He took the term Canada corner a little bit too literally and tried to aim for Canada, considering how late he braked heading into the corner. As Richard Davenport comes down pit lane very late. Actually, I believe he already took the checkered flag at the lap before, so a little bit mixed up in the GT3 field with the chaos that we saw earlier on. A little bit spread out, but Charles, comparing this race to Daytona, some pretty good storylines developing all throughout it, and even though we didn't have a heart-pumping finish towards the end for the win and lead in the Pro LMP2 field, still pretty compelling race here at Road America.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you can see that there's going to be an ongoing battle between Gilmette and Meismer, I think, for the entire season. 2.4 second gap. They were really tight, racing each other all race, just as they did the last race. Hunter Reeve did a great job to use some pit strategy to get up into P2 in the pro class. So, yeah, great driving. And then the GT3 field, this is looking like it's going to be a nice, healthy GT3 field, and there's going to be some really good racing. Oil seems to have the measure of the pro class right now, but we'll see. There's some things that are going to, some tracks are better for some cars, so it may be that tightens up. And then great job by Carney to have a very dominant win in the beneficiary class.
Ooh, and as we have some twin burnouts that didn't exactly go to plan for one of the BMWs, the Kobe all stopped now, and that was Ty Schuring. So those two drivers finishing P1 and P2 respectively in the open GT3 field, treating us to some nice burnouts down that start finish straightaway. And I gotta say, Ty Schuring, it didn't go exactly to plan for him. As I saw him tap that wall, I saw that, I believe some of the viewers saw that here on Apex Racing TV tonight. But nevertheless, as the smoke settles down and the field is back down pit lane, I think we'll touch on the results from tonight's 45-minute race at Road America. The field still settling their way down into pit lane after a hard night of racing action. We're now officially a quarter of the way through this season. Bit odd to say, considering it started only 1 week ago. And it's Connor Parise in the number 11 Nitro Circus Sim Racing car going to be winning this race. 8.7 seconds in front of Tyler Gilmette, finishing this race in second. Nice result from the victor in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 class. And it's going to be Hunter Reeve in the 44 car rounding out your overall podium. Greg Meismer going to be finishing this race in fourth, second of the Pro Ben LMP2s. And it's going to be Martin Wallace rounding out the LMP2's fifth overall. And then we can move into the heavy hitters in the GT3 field. Kobe all taking his second victory on the season in as many weeks. He finishes yet again in front of Ty Schuring in that number 46 BMW. Then we have Ian Carney, the winner in the Beneficiary GT3 field. He ends up in 8th overall in the number 54 4-wide Motorsports car. Tanner Masters going to end up in 9th in front of Tyler Manning. Those two were very close, coming to take the checkered flag overall. That is going to round out your top 10. And just scrolling over to the next page, it's going to be Mike Sachs finishing this race in 11th. Rick Haslett in P number 12. Ryan Salone finishing this race in 13th. I feel like we had a pronunciation that we agreed on. I may have just butchered it there, but nevertheless, we have Richard Davenport finishing this race in 14th, and Tyler Reed with a very dramatic evening, starting this race towards the back, going to round out your top 15.
Yeah, Dave Bell finishes in 16th. Russell Elizondo in 17th, had a very eventful race, Russell did. Anthony Calvi in 18th, Matt Ayotte in 19th, and Jacob Little rounds out the top 20. Going on down further, Gene Kelly 21st, Jake Porter 22nd, Jason McSparron in 23rd, Jonathan Winker in 24th, Dan Fendick in 25th, Rui Pereira in 26th, Brandon Mateo 27th, John Hicks 28th, Charles St. Pierre in 29th, Josh O'Connor in 30th, and the final four drivers are Pete McDade in 31st, Josh Sheps in 32nd, Daniel Salmon in 33rd, and Elliott Whitfield rounds out your 34-car grid.
And so those are the results from the second race of this very young season. Again, only 8 races here from the Operation eMotorsports Fall Series. All kicked off 1 week ago at Daytona. It continues tonight at Road America. And then in 1 week's time, we're going to be heading north of the border to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park to continue this season. We got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. Charles, would you like to have a chat with the Beneficiary GT3 winner of Ian Carney? Yeah,
let's talk with Ian. Ian, this is Charles up in the broadcast booth. Congratulations. Third overall in the GT3 class, but gets the Beneficiary class win. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Definitely appreciate you guys putting this on for us. I'm having such a blast with this league. Been introduced to it recently, and man, this organization's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is. So, you had a pretty dominant win in the Beneficiary class, but there's with the growth of the GT3 field, there was lots of racing to be had out there for you today.
Yeah, I'm sad I kind of missed it. I had a bunch of traffic with the LMP2s, of course, but a lot of my other 4-wide Motorsports teammates were out there battling pretty hard. I wish I could have seen them, but Man, I'm so happy to be P1 up here, and I want to shout out my team for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the next thing was I was going to say. If you have anybody you want to thank or give a shout out to.
Yeah, I think Ryan, Cilione, Anthony, Calvi, Rui, definitely Richard, and everybody on my team who's helped me become the racer that I am. I just started about 6 months ago. Well, actually about 9 now. Time flies, right? But and I've come so far, and I'm so proud of everybody, and I'm stoked to be up here for sure. Like I said, first interview, so I'm over the moon.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Ian, and we'll see you next week at CTMP.
Thank you.
And that was Ian Carney, who ends this race the winner in the beneficiary LMP2 class. Not the beneficiary LMP2 class, that's the beneficiary GT3s. But we're going to have a chat with some drivers in the LMP2 class. We're going to bring in Tyler Gilmet to have a quick little chat after a great night of racing action. Now, Tyler, I believe you're now 2 for 2 on this season. Won at Daytona 1 week ago, and you now win here at Road America. Talk us through the night of racing action from your end.
Man, that was a wild race, having all 5 of us in the LMP2s within 2 seconds for a while there until traffic really broke us up. Back and forth, training positions, kind of unpredictable traffic at some points. Man, it really was exciting.
Well, it's definitely exciting from our perspective. I'm sure it was incredibly exciting from your perspective behind the wheel. This track is always incredibly challenging. 4 miles long, 14 corners in all, and at the end of some of these straightaways, you guys are hitting pretty much terminal velocity in the LMP2 race cars. So could you talk us through the challenges of tackling a race at Road America in these race cars?
With the multi-class, I think the biggest thing is just trying to time when you hit the traffic, especially heading on to the main straight and the back straight, because you can lose so much time if you get caught up with them through the apex of like turn 14 or turn 3. So just trying to give yourself a gap before you get to the corner so you can get a good exit really helps out a lot.
Well, thank you very much for giving your insight into how to tackle this race. And now we got a much different challenge in 1 week's time, that being at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. How do you fancy your chances there?
I've had a lot of great success there in past seasons with Operation Motorsport, so I'm really excited to go back, and I'm confident that we can make it 3 for 3 next week.
I think you have a very good shot to do it north of the border. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us in the commentary booth, and congratulations on the 2 victories to kick this season off. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
I'd want to shout out to Operation Motorsport for putting this on again. Thank you guys for coming on. Caught the broadcast last week and it was awesome. Really excited. And then a huge shout out to Archangel Motorsports. They're a team that I activate with through the beneficiary program.
Alrighty, well there you go, Tyler. Thank you very much for the kind words. Glad you enjoy the broadcast, and always have to shout out some of the partners that you're with. So congratulations on the 2 victories to kick this season off, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack at CTMP in just 1 week's time. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you guys. See you next week.
And that was Tyler Gilmet, who ends this race in the victor's spot in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 class. And now we have the driver that he battled with. Charles, would you like to have a chat with the other side of that LMP2 Pro Beneficiary fight?
Yeah, let's bring Greg Meismer in here and we'll have a chat with him. Greg, so P2 again this week. You looks like you had the you may have had him covered, and then he just made a really good pit stop and maybe did a little bit of I don't know if it was necessarily a fuel strategy or not, but kind of jumped you there, and the traffic I think kept you from really trying to give him a good battle at the end.
Yeah, I think I played myself. I did. I think I wasted a lot of fuel in the out lap trying to get some heat into the tires, because Connor and Tyler were able to go, I think, 2 laps longer than I was on fuel. I had to pit when I did. or else I wasn't going to make it another time around. So yeah, I think I messed up in the pre-race warm up there.
Yeah, just had to put that in the notebook for the next time, right?
Yep. Definitely won't be doing that again.
All right, so next week we're going to be at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Much different track than what we had the first 2 weeks. So what do you think the keys are going to be to getting yourself a class win next week?
Ooh, tire and traffic management. Tire and traffic management, I think, are going to be the keys to that game. Michelin has CTMP rated as one of their most high energy tracks, so it's got a lot of tire wear, especially down in the dips. So yeah, just watching those fronts and trying not to run into the back of anybody.
There you go. You sound like you've got the strategy kind of laid out already. So congratulations again. Good race. We really enjoyed it. I mean, the LMP2 battle was between you and Reeve and Tyler are really, really strong there at the end. So it was really, really fascinating to watch. So we'll let you give your thanks and shouts out before we let you go.
Oh yeah, definitely got to give a shout out to you guys and Operation Motorsport, obviously, for putting everything on, and then shout out to my team, DFG Racing and Core Motorsports for supporting me and everything I do, and then shout out to Tyler, and I mean, just a great competitor. I love racing with him. It's going to be an awesome season.
All right, well, congratulations, Greg. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
And that was Greg Meismer, who was the other side of that pro beneficiary LMP2 fight. That class has been incredibly entertaining thus far, Charles, as has all of the classes, really. You know, as much as it hasn't been too close in the GT3 races, there's been some pretty compelling storylines, especially when it comes to that inter-manufacturer battling and the pros and cons of each car. But as we mentioned in those interviews with the drivers, the next race of the season is going to be a Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, a much different track than what we had here at Road America. This track has straightaways. That track really doesn't. Even the Mario Andretti straightaway on that racetrack is more of a constant curve, but going to be a much different track that we'll be visiting. But I still think it's going to be the same great racing action. What do you think that race is going to be like in 1 week's time?
Yeah, you know, Greg said it very well. Traffic management is going to be key. You know, really there's only really a couple of good places to pass. As you said, the Mario Andretti straight, the back straight. And then you just really got to be patient. There are some places that you can work your way around cars, but it's not one of those tracks where you're going to be able to make high speed passes like you can here. You're really going to have to kind of prepare. And be smart about it. But it's always, anytime we go to CTMP, anything we broadcast, and this is not going to be any exception, it's just going to be some fantastic racing. I love that track. As hard as it is to drive, it is so much fun once you kind of figure things out. So I'm really looking forward to broadcasting that race next week.
And you brought up a very good point, Charles, talking about the action that we have all around the clock here on Apex Racing TV. If you're in the mood for some GT3 action, we've got you covered with the ARL GT3 Trophy Season number 8, round number 8 at this very racetrack, Road America. That is going to be coming up this upcoming Friday on the 6th. Then we have the Racing Unleashed GT3 Series, round number 4 of that season, coming from Daytona International Speedway. Then if you're in the mood for some Radical SR10 action, you've got the Radical Sim Racing European Championship, round number 10 at Brands Hatch. There's a championship to crown in that series, as with the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship, also round 10, also at Brands Hatch. And we're all going to be on that broadcast, so you better tune in for that. It gives you more of a reason to subscribe here to Apex Racing TV so you never miss a thing. And actually, a little bit of insight, coming up in just a couple of days' time is, I believe, going to be the Apex Racing TV August highlight reel, so you really want to tune into those. Those are usually fantastically entertaining, as has the racing been with this series thus far. We're now a quarter of a way through this season of the Operation eMotorsports Racing League here from fall of 2024. It's been entertaining thus far, and I'm sure the next 6 rounds are going to be no different. Canadian Tire coming up in just 1 week's time. But I think for this broadcast for tonight at Road America, that will just about do it. And so, for myself, Ron Mullins, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a fantastic job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.